In this series of podcasts through the Visionary Chronicles, we're going to talk about what makes a brand truly visionary. Is it product? Is it innovation, culture, marketing? What success formula has sustained iconic brands such as Apple, Nike, Adidas? Allowed them to maintain their vision and brand ethos for generations. In the Visionary brand, we'll explore what's at the core of these generational brands and how one becomes visionary, along with discussing foundational principles needed to achieve visionary status, defining the origins around creating this masterpiece and why having all these attributes is so elusive for these brands. The Visionary brand outlines the strategic elements to implementing this formula through defining your vision, creating your path, through foundational pillars of success, creating a continual flow of innovative ideas and products, developing breakaway design strategy, maintaining premium positioning in your selected marketplace, and building a passionate culture and one that others will want to be a part of. Being a market-driving versus a market-driven company and strategy around that. Becoming a leader versus a follower. And having the courage to be great in whatever you do. With this book, you'll learn how to take your brand to the next level by defining your vision, foundational principles, and building a continual flow of innovations through a breakaway product strategy, maintaining premium positioning, and creating a passionate culture embraced by your brand and your community. So I look forward to taking you through these podcasts specifically around the Visionary brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands. Today on the Visionary Chronicle podcast, we're going to talk about and continue our series on the new book I just released, The Visionary Brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands. Just recently released a couple months ago. Proud again to say that we are an Amazon bestseller. Thank you for those that purchased the book. Very much appreciated. And hopefully you're enjoying the series. We're just starting with this series, and what we're doing is step by step, chapter by chapter, taking you through a little bit more detail as to when I was putting together this book. Again, I call it a labor of love for 18 months, but certainly something very rewarding when you hear the comments and feedback that you get from those that have purchased the book and how they've been able to apply it in their day-to-day, whether it be personal or professional. So it's very rewarding to finally have this in print and to have it be a success and to have those that have read it be able to apply it in their daily life. So today we're going to talk about a little bit further on the last episode. We talked about the creative engine, market driving versus market driven. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how do you build a market driving brand. And this is a lot easier said than done. It's a very complicated process, one that's earned over time. And I'll talk about that a lot. Meaning earned is also being authentic, meaning that you do it day after day. You do the same thing regardless of the situation. And what you find with these iconic brands, those that I've been with as well as those that I've worked with through Liquid Mind, is that they have that consistency. They have that consistency on a day-to-day basis of who they are, what they do, how they do it, where they sell it. If any of those pieces are broke, they lose their authentication with their community. And especially what you see today with the D2C business being so integral to every brand's success. I don't care if it's a large, established, iconic global brand. Also, startups effectively have the same strategy they have to put in place in order to be a market-driving brand. So when we look at this, we say, with the current state of our economy, in particular, what we're going through today with the pandemic and the stock market, whatever, we're affected by this both from a professional and business, but also from a personal standpoint. What I find is that there's one area where most brands that I've been working with through Liquid Mind, big and small, as a matter of fact, we work with large cap as well as mid cap companies, and also entrepreneurial startups where I give my time through the university level. what they find is they want to control pricing power. You hear a lot of words about, hey, I want to have pricing power. Obviously, investors love that. Shareholders love that. So it's something that people talk about a lot. But, what does this mean, pricing power? And it goes back to being market driving. And pricing power is driven not by being a commodity brand, meaning one where your only power is the ability to reduce your price. It's an oxymoron to think you have pricing power if you're a commodity brand with no equity and no community or loyalty that goes back to your brand day after day, year after year, month after month, whatever it may be. So, but by being a market leader in all you do and becoming what I call an indispensable part of your consumer's everyday life, that is commanding pricing power through being a market leader and your market driving status as a brand within your category, whether it's a product or a service. So when we talk about this, being a market driver versus being market driven, if you're driven by the market, meaning that you wait for your competitor to provide a product for you to copy, you are effectively driven by the market because you have no innovation pipeline or anything on the supply and demand curve that allows you to configure price points, whether on a service level or a product level, that take you to the next generation of products and allow you to command that pricing power on the back end of the supply chain curve with late adopters and then also with the early adopters and innovators that are willing to pay a higher price point for the next generation of your products. So that's commanding pricing power. Typically, you're going to see a commodity brand sit on the back end with late adopters. It's obviously a very big portion of the population. But the issue with that is more often than not, you have price point compression. And that's really what being driven by the market is price point compression, because you have nothing innovative and or new that a consumer feels it is an indispensable part of their life. So when I talk about indispensable, this could be a Ralph Lauren, it could be an Apple, it could be a service that you get, a SaaS service, something on the cloud. It really doesn't matter, because what you're looking at is it's part of your lifestyle. I don't care if it's an apparel item, I don't care if it's a brand that you do or a service that you need. It's effectively an integral part of your day-to-day life, and you can't live without it. I'm not talking about groceries. I'm not talking about discretionary items. I'm talking about things that you need to make your life easier on a day-to-day basis. That's what market-driving brands do for you. So the most renowned brands you'll find that are market-driving are those who understand what it takes to create what I call the future. Those that live in the present are market driven. Those that live in the future are market driving brands. But you have to have a vision of the future in order to be able to realize the future. So you're effectively building products that others never knew they needed. So being a market driver, and with it, you command that pricing power through loyalty of your consumer and community that need the next generation of your product. Maybe you don't need the iPhone 13, but it's the fact that Apple threw in some new items that you can't live without for whatever reason. That's what you're being an early adopter is all about. You want to have the latest technology. You want to have the latest driver from TaylorMade or from Callaway. You want to have the next running shoe from Nike or Brooks or Saucony, whoever it is. It's just one of those things, and it holds true on the supply and demand curve. You're offering something new that's a benefit to the lifestyle of the consumer that you're selling to. So being able to control your destiny, that's effectively what it is when you're a market-driving brand, is that you've got this innovation pipeline that regardless of the situation, regardless of the storm, regardless of a pandemic, regardless of what happens in the economic environment, you've always got something in the pipeline that allows you to command pricing power and loyalty with your consumer. So being able to control your own destiny is a very enviable position, and why so few have it. And this can carry you through the worst of those economic storms. And wouldn't that be a great position to be in? These brands that I work with, that they seem to be calm during the storm because they know that there's an opportunity for them to either provide a new service, to provide a new product. They have things and have anticipated this may happen, and they have the ability to command pricing power through the products that they have and also command loyalty with their consumer through a lifestyle that they've given to them as well over the years and built that loyalty over the years. It's a great example when you think about a Nike or a Ralph Lauren, where I talk about it many times, where Ralph had said, hey, we're not selling a product, we're selling a lifestyle. And it's a very envious position to be in, because when you look at a Nike or you look at an Adidas, you look at these consumer brands, you don't necessarily need the latest Nike running shoe. It's just the fact that you are an early adopter and you want something new. You want to reward yourself. You want to have something that makes your activity easier or better for you and allows you to perform better. A lot of times this is just early adopter positioning, and it allows you to command price point power over your commodity competitors. And that's why everything at retail is priced based off of good, better, best. I want to be best, and that best level is more often than not driven by your ability to drive a lifestyle with your consumer and also your community that becomes indispensable for them. They want to have this, and they want to have the feeling that they have the best product. So however you do this, being a market driver is an earned, not a given right. You know, it's earned through realizing this future vision of what your brand wants to achieve. And those that are market driven are unwilling to take that risk to achieve it. They just neither don't have the vision, or they don't have the wherewithal in order to go through the barriers that are inevitably going to happen when you're trying to be an early innovator with breakaway products, with an innovation pipeline that you're developing and building. We talk about in the book, The Visionary Brand, in detail. In the Visionary Brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands, I go through case studies of how these brands have been successful in establishing themselves as market driving brands. So hopefully you find that very useful as well. I know when I read books, and I've read many of them, hundreds of books, I always find that visual and verbal is extremely helpful. So I put that in the book. So you not only verbally can read about it, you can visually see it as well. So again, what you'll find is those that are visionary brands, those market drivers, are willing to take the risk to achieve success. So becoming a market leader, what I call best-in-class brand, requires a long-term vision of what your world will look like in the future, not what it is today. Anybody can change things based on what they see right now. It's those that are visionaries, those that are market leading, market driving brands that understand the future. To see today and tomorrow is easy. To predict the futures for the brave, those willing to risk failure to achieve success. That's hard to do, and why so few brands are effectively market leaders. Most, if not all, are driven by the market. Nothing wrong with that. You know, brands like Skechers have done a great job with it and following those that have established an innovation pipeline, and they've kind of surfed along that with those brands that provide them with the ideas. So to become, you must first believe that you can achieve visionary status and realize your goal of becoming a best-in-class category leader. This journey, though, is not for the faint of heart. I can tell you from personal experience with my own company I had for 10 years, sold it to a VC firm. There were a huge amount of storms I had to go through, barriers I had to bust through, and many times felt like giving up. But I didn't, because I had this vision and I knew I was going along on the journey. And I had a lot of faith through that journey as well, that there was always somebody looking out for me. And without that belief, I would have failed again and again and eventually probably given up. So it's not for the faint of heart. You know, those who turn and run when they see that storm coming effectively are those market-driven brands. And I find these examples very useful because when you look at these storms, they're merely a barrier to those market driving brands that see the daylight at what's ahead. Step by step, they understand they're going to achieve success. So what is this journey to becoming a market driving best in class brand look like? So, over the years, hopefully with the examples that I have of brands that I've worked with through Liquid Mind, as well as myself personally being in executive roles on product marketing and sales with these brands such as TaylorMade, Oakley, Adidas, Nike, and others along the way, both international and domestic, there's one common thread to their success, was knowing what they wanted to achieve and building a culture wrapped in this vision and sticking to their plan. So when I looked at this, there's many steps, but I found these to be steps crucial to your success as you walk along this journey of becoming what I call a market driving brand. Number one is have a vision and stick to the plan. Knowing storms will come and temptations to veer off course are hard to resist. Believe me, I know. Brands, they'll find, hey, I'm in the middle of this storm and it seems to never end. It always ends. It's those that want to get out of the boat, try to swim to shore. These analogies that we're using here, you'll also see staying on course is different than having to pivot. Pivoting is a necessary and then a great example in sailing. It's a tack maneuver. But you always remain on course to your goal as it is with sailing. They may veer to the right and to the left, tack back and forth, but effectively they know their goal and where they have to be at a certain period of time, regardless of the storm. It's very similar with sticking with your vision and your plan. The second is build an authentic culture. So the vision is only as good as your ability to create a team that has a passion around that vision and is willing to stick to it through thick and thin. So you have to, and I put these two words together for a reason. I've seen brands that said, hey, we want to learn how to build a culture. I said, well, how authentic is your current culture? Well, we don't have one right now, so we're trying to understand what we are as a brand. So when you look at establishing a vision first, you understand who you are, what you do, where you sell it, and how you make it. So building this authentic culture is wrapped around that culture. Culture is earned through authentic leadership. Be authentic, and this takes care of itself. The third is be a realist. Understand your vision, but not so stubborn that you don't realize when to maneuver to another path. And what I say path, I don't say stop and turn around. What I'm saying is you've got a vision, but don't be so stubborn where you keep going down this path to a goal where it's going nowhere. Meaning that you've got a point-to-point vision of where you have to go. And if that path that you're on is not leading you toward that vision, if you're taking 2 steps back and 1 step forward, realize that's not the right path, but the vision remains the same. Just pivot. Go on another course, but go towards your point of vision of what you originally set for the brand and the company. As soon as you move away from your vision, as soon as you move away from what you're trying to achieve as a brand, you've failed. You're part of that 95% of all startups and companies and brands that fail over time. Don't be part of that boneyard. You want to make sure that you have the ability to have a vision, stick to that plan, build an authentic culture, but be a realist and understand that your vision may require you having to pivot or tack, but staying on course to what your overall goal is. So those are 3 pieces that are critical, and I find for market driving. And again, we talk about it a lot in the Visionary brand. The book I just released, it's available through all book distributors on a global level. And each of these is a critical piece to achieving success. But I say together, you realize a market driving brand. So work towards these goals, set your sight on these goals, and achieve what others say is impossible, and you can do it. Want to thank you for joining us on the Visionary Chronicles podcast today. Really appreciate your time. I know you've got a million things going at you each day, but if you find the content useful, which I hope you do, and we've had great growth in response to the Visionary Chronicles podcast, that you would subscribe. We're available through almost every podcast platform: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, Podbean, any of those sites. We would appreciate you subscribing. And as part of that subscription, you'll also receive exclusive content. And we also have premium service as well as a newsletter that we send out to those who are subscribers. So again, thank you for your time. We look forward to providing some additional great content on the next episode of the Visionary Chronicles podcast.